Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of my podcast, Is Breakfast Included? Now today on the podcast, I sit down with my good buddy Ben Post. Now Ben is the bass player in the Austin-based band Mass Minor. He also plays the role of John Taylor in the Duran Duran tribute band Wild Boys. Ben and I had a great conversation. We talked about Mass Minor's current vinyl release that was released digitally in 2020, the band that got him to start playing bass, and his mom's current obsession with K-pop. We had a great conversation. Let's check it out. Yes. Hey, I think we're live.
Okay. Hi.
Tell me who you are. Tell everyone who you are, what you do, where you're from.
Sure. My name is Ben Post, and I'm in Austin, Texas. And I am a member of a band called Mass Minor. That is a new wave, synthwave band that's based here in Austin. And I also play bass. I play the part of John Taylor in Wild Boys, which is a Dallas-based Duran Duran tribute band.
Right on.
Yeah.
Is bass guitar your main instrument? Have you always played bass?
Yeah. Well, I mean, since I've started playing music seriously, yes, bass was my first instrument. But as you can see here, I play some keys as well.
When did you start playing bass?
Seriously, I started playing it about 15, 16 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Before then, it was just kind of fooling around, but I started taking it seriously.
Do you come from a musical family, or?
Yeah, my mother is actually a very gifted musician. She's a really talented singer and piano player. My aunt also, her sister is a very, very talented musician as well, plays piano also, and writes songs. But they just do it for fun.
Right on.
It's not really.
But it's in your blood.
Yeah. I mean, we had my grandparents had, a piano in the house, and we'd always sing and play piano around my grandparents' house whenever we go and visit. And, music is just, it's always been around. Or I remember being a kid, and when MTV started, it was always on in the house. I was only 5 years old when MTV started, but my mom had MTV on all the time and was always singing along to songs.
So she's kind of hip.
Yeah, I mean, back then, I think she'd like to think she's still hip now too, and she is. She's really into Wild Boys. She comes out to the shows. So.
Oh, was she a fan of that band?
I don't think she was a big fan of Duran Duran. Her thing was more, she was a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. Loves Stevie Ray Vaughan. Just like really into blues. These days, however, she's into K-pop. K-pop is her, she loves all the K-pop, BTS, and if it comes out of Asia and it's pop music, she loves it.
Nice. What was the one catalyst that made you want to start playing in bands? And was there did you go see a band play and go, oh, I want to do that, or was it a video? Or
so you've kind of hit it straight on. I remember being maybe about 8 years old. Would have had to have been 8 years old. And I saw the video for Panama by Van Halen, and Van Halen was my first favorite band as a kid, and I just you know those videos, Jump and Panama, the David Lee Roth swinging around
Michael
on the
Anthony
stage,
swinging with the bass,
exactly, and I wasn't necessarily into bass at that point, but just the idea of being on stage and just that whole thing, that whole experience was that's kind of what started it. I kind of started getting into other things, as a teenager, like everyone does, and just kind of messing around with friends. We had just some pickup bands where no one had any talent for anything, but you'd scream the lyrics and play poorly tuned instruments, and
all plugged into the same amp.
Right, exactly, and it was just. I mean, it sounds awful. There's still a friend of mine sent me a tape of some of those recordings, and it's hilarious, but it's awful. But just messing around. But I've always wanted to do that. And then, like I said, about 15, 16 years ago, I picked up a a used bass at a pawn shop. It's actually that one over there, that Washburn. You can't see it because it's in the gig bag, but I just picked it up and for $100 and a little cheap practice amp and started playing. And I was terrible for about a year, but after that, it started sounding a little better. And then as the years have gone by, it's a little better and a little better. And
so you've only been playing 15, 16 years?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for real. Now, as a child, of course, being around music and, I took music classes and things like that. So I have like some basic music theory, but actually like seriously playing an instrument, practicing, writing songs, trying to be serious about being a musician, 15 years or so. Yeah.
Oh. And then you also play keyboards.
I attempt to play keyboards.
Who was your first guy, your first influence as a bass player?
Well, I mean,
are we going to go there already?
I guess so. I mean, yeah, obviously it's John Taylor. But I don't want to give you the impression that it's just, John Taylor. Obviously one of John Taylor's big influences, was Bernard Edwards, who, to this day, I still, can't really play any of his bass lines, because they're so amazing and so challenging to play. Another one that falls in that category I've always loved, John Entwistle, definitely one of my favorites, but again, very, very difficult songs to play on the bass. I was in another band a few years ago called the Union Jacks. We did all British pop and rock covers, and we did Won't Get Fooled Again, and that was probably the most challenging song that I had to learn to play for that band. But yeah, I mean, I could sit here and list a number of bass players, but if you're asking for the guy, it's John Taylor, of course.
From the get-go, like when you started taking bass serious?
Yeah, I was...
there's nothing wrong with that. John's an amazing bass player, and he's influenced a lot of people, and he's a lot of guys' hero. But
so, I'll kind of put it like this. I started really getting into Duran Duran, around the time I was about 14 years old. And that was also kind of around the same time where, my friends and I were starting to, just put together, silly little bands and stuff like that. And so, I would try to emulate, sort of that, that style of playing, the really sort of staccato style of playing. And that, that's kind of where I got into that. It was sort of the perfect blend of, sort of that disco feel on bass, anything that has octaves in it, I'm probably going to love. And so there was a lot of that there. But, just also kind of the image of it, that whole band was like, the band that the girls wanted to be with and the guys wanted to be, or at least, guys like me wanted to be.
Yeah.
I know the rock guys were like,
I've heard that line about them and other bands, but
So yeah, I mean, obviously over the years, I've been exposed to a lot of music and had a number of bass players that I would consider among my favorites. But there's just something about the bass lines that he composes that is something that I've kind of always aspired to emulate. Obviously everyone has their own style, and so you kind of go off and do your own thing, and stuff that I've written, you can hear that influence there, but it's
which brings me, like, you have your own band, Mass Minor.
I do. Yes.
Do you bring any of that to this band?
So the answer is not as much. Mass Minor is definitely more of kind of like I said, it definitely falls squarely within new wave. But there's definitely much more of an emphasis, I think, on the electronic part of it. Mm-hmm. And so, the bass lines that I'm playing in that band. So, part of the time I'm playing synth, and then part of the time I'm playing bass. A lot of those bass lines, are they sound a little bit more kind of like what a synth bass would sound like. It's a lot of 16th notes, a lot of sort of those driving, pulsing bass lines. Whereas I think, John Taylor bass lines are more melodic, more, there's a bit more musicality to those bass lines. Whereas what I'm doing at Mass Minor is a little bit more, sort of like if you were playing a synthesizer and you have that kind of feel.
Yeah. Between the two bands, do you keep the same, like the rig, or is your tone completely different in Mass Minor than it is in your tribute band?
Yeah. So, obviously in the tribute band, I'm trying to sound as much like John Taylor as possible. So, I'm playing those same instruments. I'm playing, the PV and the aria, and trying to use the, similar effects. In Mass Minor, I'm primarily playing the P bass, just with a very, just really, really trebly kind of tone on the P bass, and not really any kind of effect on that at all.
People overcall you in the tribute band. They overcall like, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that, or hair's too long.
That's really that's really the only criticism is about the hair. So far I haven't been called out for anything in terms of the sound or the gear or anything like that, but I'm not cutting my hair. So John looks great, of course, but I'm keeping the long hair.
And you, Mass Minor, just released your first album? We
did. So we kind of released it. We released it digitally last year. Obviously, the pandemic has been something that we've had to adjust to.
Yeah.
We were originally intending to release start releasing singles early in 2020, which we did. We released them digitally, and then the plan was to have some shows to support that, and really promote the singles and kind of build up to the album. We ended up not playing any shows that year. We released the album digitally. We had an album release last August. Still weren't able to play shows, so we've kind of been focusing instead of on building the show, on promoting the album, sort of building our audience on social media. We did a vinyl release this summer in June. So go to massminor.com to pick up your copy. But we have the vinyl record, and then we just released a music video 3 weeks ago, first official music video. So, and we're pretty pleased with how that turned out. It's a really, really cool video.
So you said you wanted to release it in 2020, but of course the pandemic.
Right.
Did that stunt your momentum that you had for it? Like now that you're starting it, are you getting it back, or you're kind of like going through the motions of releasing it? Or are you excited about releasing the vinyl and the video and so forth?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the video in particular, we're really excited about because it turned out really, really well. We shot the video. We actually shot 2 videos at a place called Hopscotch in San Antonio. It's an interactive art installation with these really, really cool installations in there that we were able to, do a performance video in. So we recorded where we shot everything there, and then we're working with this really great visual effects and editing guy. His name's Bo Loy. And he did an amazing job editing it. It turned out really, really well. So we're very excited about that. We're looking to release our second music video towards the end of the month of October. And I mean, we're excited about the vinyl as well. Obviously, the big vehicle, is the live shows. So we're trying to get back into that.
Anything planned yet?
Well, we don't have anything on the books, but I've been talking to some other bands. I've been talking to some venues. So I have some buttons ready to push. But my bandmate Andrew, he just had his wife just had a child about 3 weeks ago, so I'm trying to give him a little space in that. But I'm really hoping this month that we can get back in the studio and get warmed up on the set and get refreshed so that we can get some shows on the books this fall, and then next year really kind of take it to the next level. I'd love to play something at South by Southwest next year. We've applied for that. Get some shows locally, maybe some regional tours with some more established bands. So yeah, I mean, I've been waiting for a long time. This pandemic has been a real bummer in that regard. Like I said, we've kept busy. We've been doing the promotion. We've been doing the videos. We've been writing new material because at some point we'll want to release a second record. But I'm ready to play shows like that. For me, the reason I do all this is to be on stage. Songwriting's great, recording's great, videos are great.
You're more of a live show guy.
The number one thing for me is being on stage.
Have you guys recorded any new material for a second release or written?
We've demoed out some stuff. So I think there's going to be plenty of material for another album when the time is right. But we have to give this album kind of its fair shake, and play these songs. I think once we have a chance to get out there and start playing shows and people, seeing the stuff performed live, that'll start kind of driving that momentum again. And, this is what it's all about.
Well, I've known you for a few years now. Ever since I've known you, I met you. You were in the Union Jacks.
That's right.
Then you joined Wild Boys.
Right.
And I believe Mass Minor was happening or around that time.
Yeah.
As long as I've known you, you've been a working musician, so to speak. Is there
working, I guess, is one way to describe it. I do have a day job.
A gigging musician. Well, at any point, did you ever want to do anything else other than this?
No, I've always honestly, I always have wanted to do this.
Before you were playing, and
for sure, yeah. When I was growing up, I was really, really into music. I grew up in Dallas, and so I went to a lot of shows in Dallas. I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
And I loved it. That was like some of my best memories as a kid were going to see shows. I was really into Depeche Mode, around that time as well. I went to go see a lot of Depeche Mode shows that were in Dallas, and I just the feeling that I got, like seeing these people on stage and the energy in the place, something I've always wanted to do, but my parents were not super supportive of that. Like most parents, you need to go to school, you need to
should have went that K-pop route. They'd be real supportive then.
If only you could see in the future, 25 years. So I kind of did that. I kind of did what my parents were like. No one becomes successful being a musician. Of course, obviously some people do.
Yeah.
But it is very rare. It's like, someone who becomes a pro football player or something like that.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to do it. I went to school, I got a job, got married, had a kid, did all that. And then, something, like I said, something clicked, around the time I was 30. And I was just like, if I'm going to do this, I need to start working on it now.
Yeah.
And so I did.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I kind of come from the same generation where we were raised on the radio, and then MTV came along. We got to see the radio. And I think at some point all of us wanted to do it. These days it's so easy to do for these younger kids.
Sure. If you got a laptop and
a laptop, every kid I know plays guitar or is a DJ. I don't know a lot of kids, but you know what I mean. I don't hang out with a bunch of kids. But it was harder for us to do it. It was harder for us to do. We had to learn how to. and that's not bagging on this younger generation. What they do is amazing. But going into is there any new bands that you take influence from that you listen to and go like, that's pretty cool?
Yeah,
I'm gonna bite that, like.
Yeah, there's a guy. He goes by, his stage name is Comtrues. He's his real name is Seth Haley, but he's an incredible an electronic artist. His music, we actually do kind of try to emulate some of his some of the beats and rhythmic elements that he does in his music in Mass Minor.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that it kind of, obviously it's a very modern sounding music, but it has this, a lot of it at least has this ability to kind of also sound like something from from the 80s. Like it somehow occupies both those spaces of being like as modern as possible, but also sort of hearkening back and having sort of a I hate using the word nostalgic. It's not nostalgia, but just sort of putting a new twist on some of those sonic feelings from that era. But not in a cheesy way. There are a lot of electronic artists out there, that are, sort of, especially in the synthwave space, that just sort of, just sort of recycling some of that stuff. And there's a lot of cliches, but there's nothing about that. So, Comtrues is, I never get tired of listening to his records. He put a record out earlier this year, a new record, which was, I think, a compilation of some other material that hadn't released. But
well, I'm not hip to a lot of new artists, but I think what I've noticed and what I've heard is like everyone's trying to make it sound like the 80s. You and I heard the 80s when it was in the 80s,
right?
But not just bands, but like gear companies are like, oh, get that sound. I have a friend who owns a pedal company, and he's coming out with all these 80s choruses and preamps, and they sound really cool. But it's kind of a thing right now. Is that a trend, or is that something that has been going on for a while that you know of?
Well, I think it goes in cycles. I remember kind of when the 80s were over, in the early 90s, and again, I was a teenager. I didn't want to let go. So I'd make all these mixtapes of 80 songs and stuff like that. And then kind of as we moved through the decade, people started getting more interested in the 80s again. Yeah. It's once there was some separation. And then there was sort of a 90s revival. And now I think, again, there definitely is a lot of interest in, sort of those sound palettes from the 80s. One of the things that Andrew and I in Mass Minor, we talk about this a lot, when we're kind of looking at synth sounds and things like that. We have a number of these plugins that, that have reproduced digitally, a lot of those sounds created by some of those analog synths from the 80s, like, the Jupiter, the Roland Jupiter, and some of those other really kind of iconic synthesizers from that time. So there's a lot of interest in those sounds, and continuing to use those. Again, I think there sometimes is a tendency to take it overboard and kind of get really cliche with it, but I think there's definitely room for use in that, kind of, using modern sound design techniques along with some of these really, really cool sounds from the 80s to make stuff that, again, gives you that feeling but is still new.
Yeah. I should have asked you this before.
Sure.
But I'll ask you this now. What was your first concert, and what was the one concert that made you like, whoa,
So I think the first concert I went to was In Excess, which was in the early 90s, and it was in Fort Worth, I think. And the Catherine Wheel was the opening band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a really, really good show. Very memorable. obviously we didn't have In Excess really for, at least that In Excess for much longer after that. So I'm very fortunate, consider myself fortunate to have been able to go to that show. As far as the show that's like blown my mind, it was actually a relatively recent one. I went to see Guns N' Roses about 4 years ago in San Antonio, and it really did blow my mind. Just an incredible. The whole show is just larger than life. Seeing Axl Rose sing for 3 hours it's and especially the way that Axl Rose sings.
Yeah.
Just for 3 hours, just, the lights, the sounds, the pyrotechnics, the music. Obviously that music is, those songs are iconic rock and roll songs. Slash up there in the middle of the stage, just like a statue.
I know, right? I saw GNR back in the day when I was a kid, and I just saw them this summer in New Jersey, and I still got that feeling.
Oh man.
Watching them play, the Top Hat, Duff, who's my favorite member of Guns.
They've still got it. Yeah. Duff.
They put on a rock show.
It's
a
incredible. Real
rock show. It didn't seem like they were phoning it in.
Not at all. Not at all. I loved it. I unfortunately missed my opportunity to go see them last month. We're only now just kind of getting comfortable with going out to see shows again. Obviously,
I understand.
This week has has kind of been my reintroduction to
you're coming out,
right? large audience events. But I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to see that show again, because it really, in my mind, when I think about, what that kind of, ultimate rock show is, that was sort of the template for it in my mind.
I've heard a lot of people bag on that show, but it's usually people who don't realize that they're not 18 or 20 anymore, and they're putting on that level of a show for that long at their age.
Yeah, and I don't understand the hate either. The Rolling Stones are still out there doing it.
I'm going to see the Rolling Stones for the first time.
Wow.
Next month. Depending on when this is released.
up where you are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're going to be here in November as well. I'm sure they'll be here the day after or the day before or whenever they're up where you are. And the thing is age is certainly a factor. I've seen some shows where age has, definitely diminished the performance, but it doesn't have to. And with the Guns N' Roses guys and the Rolling Stones and some of these other bands that are out there still doing it, they're so committed to that performance that that they've overcome their age.
Yeah. And I remember a few years ago watching, it was a show that The Who did, The Who performed, and I was watching it on TV on a bus, and Pete Townsend did the knee slide. And then to watch him get up, it was the one knee and the,
he had to put his hands down and push himself
up. My only thought was like, I'm glad he's still around to do it.
Yeah.
And the guy's, I don't know how old he is.
He's got to be in his 70s.
But he's still, he's still putting a show on for the fans. That's what I look at as somebody who loves live music. I've had my fair share of going to see bands and I'm like, this is terrible.
Right.
But at the same time, as somebody in this industry, I look at it and go like, they're still doing it. That's what we should care about. Like, there's so many of them that we missed.
That's rock and roll. Like you don't like, oh, I'm 60 now. I don't rock anymore. I'm 70. I don't rock anymore. Obviously, if you have, there's some people, of course, that have health issues, but to be honest with you, Charlie Watts kind of, he did it right. Like he just kept playing right up until the end.
Yeah.
So, if you're lucky enough to do that,
do it.
That's what I'd love my story to be.
Well,
something like that.
Well, man, you know what this podcast is called. You know what the next question is. Is breakfast included? If it was, what would you have?
Breakfast is always included. And I've gotten simple with breakfast these days. I used to love big sort of like full English style breakfast with everything on it. But these days, I just maybe some pastries, croissant with some cream cheese and some butter.
You were the third person that's mentioned English breakfast on this podcast.
There's something to be said about it. It's a young man's breakfast, though.
It is.
I think you kind of outgrow it because
I still love it.
Oh, I love the concept of it. Yeah, for sure. But, I'm sitting there with a plate with, these 10 things on it, and I'm just like, I can't eat all that. Yeah. Maybe if it's 3:00 in the morning and I've been going all night, then I can do it. But I think these days, just keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there where can people find you on social media and your band Mass Minor and even Wild Boys?
Yes. Well, so Mass Minor is really easy. It's just www.massminor.com. That's MASSMINOR.com. And of course, we're on all the social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, so you can find us there as well. Wild Boys as well, you can find on the web. It's wildboystribute.com, like how it sounds. Also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So you can find all the information there. Wild Boys is actually playing this Friday. When this podcast is released, it may be after the show is over.
Yeah. So he played last Friday, guys.
Yeah. October 8th.
But you can go and find out any live shows you have coming up with either band, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you can find out where to buy the record. If you're in Texas, the record is actually available in the Dallas area at Josie Records, and it's available in the Austin area at Waterloo Records. So you can pick it up there. Obviously, you can order it online through the website as well, if that's your preference. And of course, YouTube as well. So check out we have YouTubes for both those bands. So check those out as well, because we've got some pretty cool videos up. I think that covers everything.
Anything else you want to promote?
I can promote my finance and accounting skills.
Anybody need them to do their taxes?
Yeah. No. I think the University of Texas has got that market cornered with me. So yeah, just hoping that we can get some shows going this fall with Mass Minor. That's really the kind of the spot where we're at right now. So hopefully we'll have some information to share about that soon.
All right, on, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to call you my friend. I'm glad we finally got to do this. I know we tried it before and there was some Zoom issues, but thank you for sitting down with me and doing this.
I appreciate you having me on. As you said, I consider you a good friend as well, and I always enjoy visiting with you and hanging out, and hopefully we get a chance to do that soon.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Right on, Ben Post of the band Mass Minor. You can find out more about the band on social media at Mass Minor, Instagram, Facebook, TikToks. You can check out their music, their merch, and if they have any upcoming dates. All right, guys, I'm done. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you next week.